the Maricopa County vote drop, it is about 98,000 ballots. It's the largest one. What we can tell you is that Katie Hobbs still maintains her lead over Kari Lake. She is maintaining a lead of about 48,000 votes. Now, that margin is tighter. It is smaller than it was here in Maricopa County versus the last report. The last report had that margin at about 57,000. Now it's 48,000. So Lake does advance, makes that margin a little bit tighter, but Hobbs maintains her lead. What we are now told by Maricopa County, and we're doing some loose math here, is that they have just under 100,000 ballots left. So not that many ballots left, 100,000. They are moving very, very rapidly here now that the processing has been done. They simply have to tabulate that. They anticipate that they will get through the large bulk of these ballots by tomorrow night. So tomorrow night, they are going to have another vote release. But right now, I can tell you, Paula, that we are seeing this race tightening. The margin is a little smaller, but Katie Hobbs maintains her lead. She is a Democrat running for governor, still over the Republican who is running for governor, Kari Lake. And what is particularly interesting about this, Paula, is that in talking to the Lake campaign, they are putting their eggs into this basket. They anticipated a huge swing. There was a lot of bravado on social media saying that tonight was a night that they were going to take the lead. That did not happen here in Maricopa County. The bulk of the votes, the largest vote bulk is here in this county. It is the most populous county in the state of Arizona. And what the Lake campaign had been anticipating simply did not happen, though she did advance. Still 100,000 votes left to count, and we just have to see how that goes.
Mark Preston, what stands out to you?
Well, a couple of things. One is, if we think overall, if we look at this election, the election deniers seem to, by and large, to have lost, and those who have lost their races have conceded. So that's why we're all looking at Arizona right now, because the biggest election denier, one of the loudest voices about it, of course, is Kari Lake, and she's the Republican nominee, for governor in Arizona. Here's the situation, though. While she did gain some ground right there, we think that she expected to get much more ground gained. And now the pie is starting to shrink right now. And for her path to win is getting smaller. I don't think we're going to call this race tonight. There's still 100,000 votes out in Maricopa County. We saw 93,000 just dropped right now. And then we have the curing to call as well. As the election officials say, Paula, let's just all take a deep breath and let the officials do their work.
Well said, well said.
But it seems like she, even as these officials are doing their work, she has been sowing doubt. And you have had officials in Arizona, Democrats and Republicans, complimenting each other about the important work that they're doing and the fair work that they're doing. So you are seeing this kind of pushback in real time to the disinformation that she and her campaign are trying to spread, even as the votes aren't even counted yet.
Right.
It's interesting to see all those people come together against this common enemy, disinformation, false claims.
Well, they've been through this rodeo before, particularly in Maricopa County. They were kind of ground zero, one of the several ground zeros, I guess, in the last election. So I think there's an acknowledgement of how fast and how united that they have to be to push back on this as it's coming in.
Absolutely. Now, if Republicans take the House, how much will their internal squabbling, their infighting, matter in terms of them actually getting anything done? Does it matter if you have the majority if you're fighting amongst yourselves?
I think we all are watching this in real time. Kevin McCarthy sounds like the Freedom Caucus is going to make his life hard from go. Look at John Boehner, former Speaker John Boehner, what he had to deal with. Less so with Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan had to deal with it a little bit, but it seems like as the margins shrink, the more you have to pay attention to every section of your conference. I know, Laura's covered this as well. We're already seeing these challenges form, and they're not going to make his life any easier. That's for sure. They have no incentive to.
No incentive at all.
Yeah.
And Laura, clearly control of the Senate is very important. And going into these races, though, a lot of people thought that President Biden was really a liability for the candidates. But how much credit does he deserve for the Senate control.
Well, a lot of Democrats are giving him credit, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, I think today was out there saying that Democrats should credit him because of the fact that he was really crystallizing, they think, the argument heading into the final stretch. A lot of people did doubt what he was focusing on, and Biden was focusing on what he and his administration had been doing, they think, to help Americans' pocketbooks, but also abortion access and threats to democracy. Those were two of the biggest arguments from the president and from a number of other Democrats, and there was a question about whether or not those two focuses would actually help vulnerable Democrats. Now, although some of the polls didn't always show that that was top of mind for voters, when I was traveling in Michigan and when I was talking to some voters in Pennsylvania, it was very clear that abortion access was front and center for a lot of those voters. In Michigan, there was a ballot measure, an abortion ballot measure in that state, along with 4 other states. But in Pennsylvania, some of the voters that I was talking to in the lead up were saying that they were squarely focused on abortion. It was motivating Democrats, and they also brought up democracy a lot and their fear about all of these election lies that was a common theme, as Mark mentioned, across states. It wasn't just in Arizona. There were election deniers up and down the ballot in Michigan. There were some in Pennsylvania, and across the board, they appear to have lost. I don't think that that means, though, that election lies are going to go away at all, because we see that the former president is continuing to spread those lies.
But it does speak to candidate quality, right? That's one of the reasons that these people couldn't go the distance. And in some cases, you had national Republicans pull their money, not support them. But in other cases, they were all in just to grow their numbers. And I should say one more thing about Kevin McCarthy. He did bring this on himself. When you had all of the fringe members of his conference doing things that were sort of out of the norm, to say the least, throughout the last conference, instead of taking them in and saying this is inappropriate, we shouldn't be doing this, he brought them into the fold. And he, by allowing that to happen, by not having any sort of discipline, I know it sounds like something out of school or something, but by not having any sort of structure like that, he empowered them. And that's where he's at.
That's really interesting. Now, let's look ahead to Georgia. You have been on the ground reporting in that state. You would know better than anybody. What does it mean if Raphael Warnock takes this seat? What does that one extra Senate seat mean for the Biden administration and its agenda?
I think it's pivotal. I think that, some are trying to sort of downplay its significance because Georgia is not again going to be in the position to determine the Senate majority, but it's still huge. We have seen that there are at least 2 senators who are not Democratic senators who are not reliable Democratic votes, right? Senator Manchin, Senator Sinema. That leads to less pressure on Senator Schumer to have to persuade them if you have Senator Warnock, who has proved to be a much more reliable Democratic vote. And then also when you're thinking about confirmation of judges, President Biden being able to move his appointees through, that helps as well. But also I think it's important for the state of Georgia. Senator Warnock, Herschel Walker have been running their campaigns very differently. They're very different candidates. And really key to Senator Warnock's reelection argument is that he is willing to work with Republicans, right? We are living in a very polarizing time, and we don't hear that a lot. We don't hear candidates center as core to their reelection argument that they want to work with the other party. And so does this work? Is he successful? Is he able to peel off independents and moderates with this election argument? I think that is a big test.
Paul, what's interesting too, if you really want to get great insight into Joe Biden, how does Joe Biden think? Who is Joe Biden? He was asked this question yesterday when he's overseas in an extremely important trip, and they said, what does this mean, this Georgia seat? And he said, it means more committee assignments. And what that means is actually more power within the United States Senate for Democrats as a whole. But it just goes to show you that Joe Biden, president, vice president, he's really an institutionalist. He really is a senator more than anything. So as we're trying to move forward, as Republicans are trying to get their act together on the Hill, can Joe Biden go in and cut deals with Mitch McConnell, other Republicans in his final 2 years? Because that's the only way he's going to get anything done, is his ability to try to come to the center.
And on that committee power that you're talking about, it also means subpoena power, right? Which Democrats don't have right now in that 50-50 Senate. It would be if there's a House Republican and then House Republicans in power and dueling with Senate Democrats in terms of investigations. That's another thing that we could see if Georgia goes to Democrats.